Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. In case you didn't recognise her, that's Felicity Jones, and the only thing I've ever seen her in is Rogue One. I saw it at the pictures a long time ago and I've got it on 4K Blu-ray, but it's still in the wrapper as I only watch Star Wars movies on the 4th of May, i.e. Star Wars Day. Now, you all know that Kathleen Kennedy has gone from Lucasfilm. So I've had a look around and it seems that she may have been fired, even though there's no official announcement. So it was a case of, thank you for your service, here's your severance pay, here's your walking papers, now F off. Now Disney probably has had enough of her, because this is on Deadline that I found on and were reported on the other Star Wars channels on YouTube. As you can read, Disneyland adding original Star Wars characters to Galaxy's Edge broadens its scope. And Luke, Darth Vader, and other Star Wars characters will soon be roaming around Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, i.e. in California, not Disney World as in Florida. That is dedicated to the franchise. Characters from the original Star Wars release between 77 and 83 were joined from different eras starting on April 29th, Disney confirmed Wednesday. Along with Luke, Vader, Han and Princess Leia inside the simulacrum of the movie's Outer Rim outpost of Batuu, that's not in the EU, will also feature the iconic original music scores by John Williams. And if you click on that, you get the puff piece from Deadline about her last interview, just a bunch of word salad. And there could be a little dispute between him and her. She says he was spooked by the fandom menace. He says no, so one of them's lying. It says, the expanded timeline showcase at Galaxy's Edge will include Galactic Civil War and New Republic, as well as the Age of Resistance and the First Order. Well, the First Order has no place in canon. And then each era will be brought to life in the same care and attention to detail that the land was originally designed with. They were going to have Endor, the Hoth, Tatooine, and all the others, but she put a stop to that. Masterfully weaving together stories from across time and space in one location. Galaxy's Edge will feature life-size replica of the Falcon. Hope they replace the square dish with a round one. And the move is leveraged nearly half a century old IP, because it's the 50th anniversary of Star Wars next year. And it comes at an important moment for the Star Wars franchise and for Disney as a company. Bear that in mind. The Mandalorian and Grogu, i.e. Pedro Pascal and a green puppet, a feature based on popular Disney Plus series which nobody ever watches, will hit theatres in May 22. It could bomb. Now, on a corporate level, Disneyland Experiences chairman Jos D'Amaro is in the running to take on additional responsibilities, with the company expected to make a decision about Iger's successor in the coming weeks. Now, that is the most important paragraph in this whole puff piece. She's now gone. The cult of Kennedy is on the way out. Dave Filoni is now in the hot seat, but Filoni is a corporate man, so Disney is probably glad to see the back of her. And as I said, she's had no awards or ceremonies or celebration of her success. Just, here's your severance pay, here's your walking papers, now go away. Now that is Deadline. And besides, that's just a grift, that is. on Hollywood Reporter, Disney will bring back the original Star Wars trilogy to Disneyland in the theme park. This was both this and this was done on January 14th. Now, it says the company is changing the timeline to its Star Wars Galaxy Edge world in Disneyland, with plans to bring characters and elements from the original story trilogy and return to the land. This will include characters like Vader, Luke Skywalker, Solo, and Princess Leia roaming the land, as well as bringing John Score to the franchise, like the other article says. Now, as I said, the cult of Kennedy is coming to an end, and all it took is for men who are Star Wars fans to not bother buying anything associated with Star Wars and not going to see any of the movies. That's why after The Force Awakens, which was after a 32-year wait, the box office receipts went down and down and down. Now, speaking of cults, this was on Better Bachelor's channel a while ago. Scholar warns feminism has become a megachurch, replacing faith, family and the Christian value. And it says, feminism is not a subset of Christianity, it's actually a rival to Christianity. Gress is the author of the forthcoming book Something Wicked, Why Feminism Can't Be Fused with Christianity, which says it examines how feminism has quietly captured the minds of hearts of women by mimicking aspects of Christianity. In other words, feminism is becoming a cult, though its own commandments, virtues, evangelization, and even a sacrament, feminism has become an exceedingly powerful megachurch. And then we have some pictures, the Daft Bints, the Kamala Harris, and the corrupt governor of Minnesota who would have been vice president. And it says, in many aspects it can actually be seen as a megachurch, as it says, feminism has its own sacraments, virtues, ritual, evangelization, all of that. The simple example is look at the commandments of feminism. There are 3 of them, and they started actually back in the 1800s. These ideas are in-laws, his mother-in-law, Mary Wollstonecraft, and father-in-law, and his own ideas, and these ideas have contempt for men, to really shun monogamy and to embrace promiscuity, and then involved in the occult, and these are some of the 3 tenets of feminism. And then we have some more Daft Bints. There's a simp, and more yada yada, more Daft Bints, and there's another simp, and there's another simp. Is that a guy or a woman? Never mind. It says, feminism has created an idol which is of course female autonomy. It's taught women and continues to tell women that our greatest happiness and our fulfillment is going to come when we are living by and for ourselves, and when we're not married, or marriage isn't really the centre of our life as well as our children. All these things are actual obstacles to the happiness that we're going to find in a career. Now, we've all seen how that's turned out, as women increasingly go on TikTok to complain that they can't get any dates, and guys are just not bothering with them at all. And he says, now the sad part, of course, is women are really made for relationships. They're made for love to others, and all we can see that this desire to love and to mother others hasn't evaporated. And this is why we see so much of a boom in the pet industry, i.e. cats. Women are just choosing to nurture pets in a way that they, in the past, would nurture their children and focus on their family. We've seen that in the celebrity spheres. Paris Hilton and other women like her carrying on a little dog. That dog is a substitute for a baby, But now Paris Hilton is too old to have children, so she's always going to have some kind of dog or a pet around her. He says, women have been targeted with the ideas that they will be angry and will be more politically helpful. And you can see this. I think many of the women's movements are not movements or events. They are showing happy, healthy, thriving women. But they're really the kind of anger, rage, envy, and contempt. All these things are sort of shot through the movement to the point. And there's an example. She's too old to have children. What was she doing in her 20s? She looks miserable. It's fake happiness. The women they work in packs. Guys can work on their own. That's another example. Women that follow a cause. George Orwell had it right in 1984. And there again, but if it was pouring with rain, they wouldn't be out protesting like that. But anyway, women going into feminism is like women going into a cult. That's why a lot of these cults seem to attract women. The Charles Manson, most of his family was women. And they found this, The Atlantic. This was done on March 7th, 2022. How confidence became a cult. Messages about women's self-esteem are now ambiguous, that their value has been replaced with debate. And then it goes on about it. Feminist culture analysts have begun to notice the rise of these messages in the early 2010s. And that was around about the time MGTOW started. They stretch across many apparent unrelated spheres: the welfare system, consumer culture, and even international development initiatives. We expected that confidence might just be having a movement, but several years later, the obsession with women's self-confidence seems only to be ramping up. Even the military has gotten the act with the 22 recruitment campaign. The British Army addressed potential female soldiers with a promise that joining this force will give them true and lasting self-esteem, unlike the superficial pseudo-confidence that can be reapplied every morning, putting on the makeup. And then you got to subscribe to The Atlantic for that. Now, going back even further in time, this was done on 12th of October 2018. And why calling out culture of modern feminism can feel like a cult from someone who should know. High control groups are obsessed with the purity of their members' speech and actions. And where is it now? This fluffy feminism. At first glance, the guilty feminist fits into a current publishing trend which attempts to turn feminist history into theory, into popular non-fiction with jazzy covers and varying results. Feminism is now fashionable. This was in 2018, and one assumes marketable. But some of these books have confusing purpose, and they're trying to be radical and challenging, or to lay out a welcome mat in the movement. And then it says, does a good job with the introductory material which dominates the first half of the book, perhaps because of her background in stand-up comedy and leadership training. And emphasis of the guilty. The guilty feminist stands out as in the guilt, not the feminist, in calling out, but by extension, the current vogue of cancelling people who say the wrong thing. Francis White probes usefully the idea of an untouchable moral high ground doesn't help with the movement it is trying to protect. Bluntly, there are ways of thinking in some feminist circles right now that remind me of being in a cult. As I said, feminism has morphed over the years into a cult. Same with the cult of Lucasfilm. The Lucasfilm Storage Group was a bunch of feminist nut jobs and no males in it, and putting the Kathleen Kennedy insert into it, an all-powerful Mary Sue. But Kathleen Kennedy is now gone, and this article shows that Disney realizes what a complete shit show Star Wars has become. But now she's gone, like all cults, once the leader has gone, it tends to implode. So we're going to see possible changes in Star Wars and getting back on track. But the three movies of the sequel are the three white elephants that still block the road. So the only thing which is going to happen is the retcon. As you know, the Hollywood does a lot of reboots. So the only way they're going to start making money now Kathleen Kennedy has gone is to reboot and retcon, hard retcon, either the trilogy that George Lucas left or Timothy Zahn's trilogy. Going back to cults, there's a lot of women on YouTube channels now, they're rejecting feminism and they turning their backs against it. So once again, feminism being a cult, the cults have run its term because all these women don't understand or want to know why their men are just leaving them and not bothering to date. And as I said, how confidence became a cult, and a calling out of cultural modern feminism can feel like a cult from someone who should know. Well, what this has to do with men is all guys had to do was guard their own wallet, i.e. MGTOW, and we know just wait it out to see who blinks first, and shows that women are blinking first. And we're saying with Disney, a multi-billion-dollar company, all the men had to do was guard the wallet, don't buy anything Star Wars characters, and as soon as she'd buggered off, then they've got to get the men back in order to make money. It didn't really take much, just resilience and patience from Star Wars, and resilience and patience for women in general, because the cult of feminism and the cult of Kennedy is coming to an end. And remember, 2013 is coming along with 45 to 52% of Western women will be childless and unmarried. So we're going to see some interesting times both in pop culture, as in Star Wars, and society as a general in feminism. I think I'm on 20 minutes now, so I better wrap it up. I'll try and keep an eye and see what's happened in Lucasfilm now that she's gone, what's happening, and of course I'll see if I can find anything more about feminism and MGTOW for next week. But for now, you all know the routine: like, dislike, comment, subscribe, and all that. It's completely up to you. So until next Monday, that's it from me. Bye bye.